Look at this thing. It says 2004 right on the back of the box. And this one, 2005, also on the back of the box. And this one, and that one again, because you can't have too many copies of those laying around, am I right? I am not a huge collector of physical media like CDs or vinyl or game DVDs, but I have 2 of each of those games and safety copies, because I could never not have the option of playing these games. Need for Speed Underground 2 will turn 20 this year, but still to this day it's my favorite racing game ever, nothing comes close. Most Wanted is second, but a far away second, and then there's a lot of nothing. Favorites are a crazy thing, because they are not there, sometimes for many, many years, and then they come around and you're like, huh, that's nice, and bam! It never leaves your sight again. And it can sour things, because the further back they go, the bigger the distance between present day and the golden times of, for example, a game, the more nostalgic we become. The heart-shaped glasses of a long-lost childhood repaint the mistakes and shortcomings of those games as almost invisible specks of dust on an otherwise clean experience. And when you go back, you're like, okay, that's not how I remember that. So I, after not having played Need for Speed Underground 2 for 5 years, and then another 5 years before that, I took a gamble. Would I destroy some fond memories? Would I see the specs as what they are? Big puddles of outdated mud? I didn't. This game is a damn banger, still is to this day. The music, the arcadey handling, the visual style, the choices they made are still as valid and solid as they were 20 years ago. Sure, it's old, it's 2 decades of graphical fidelity and gameplay and optimization old, but it is timeless. And so is its successor. So boldly different, a literal night and day difference. Improved graphics, improved handling, downgraded customization, same banger soundtrack. Strong visual choice, a lot of yellow, but still an amazing game to this day. It's these bold choices that make those 2 games stand out. In the corporate, clean environment of today, where more and more games are just the same, the boomers saying they don't make them like they used to is quite true sometimes. I know it's gotta be weird for some of you to hear me ramble on about those 2 games while you're screaming at the screen how I'm not talking about Need for Speed Underground or Carbon or newer ones, but well, luck of the draw I guess, these are the 2 games that really stuck with me. And then, for a long, long time, there was nothing. I've been waiting for a new, good street racer for a while now. Horizon 4 and 5 are great, sure, but like with many modern game IPs, it's just more of the same on a different map. Which is fine, but 3 games in a row? Sure, there have been other racing games, maybe even other street races, but Need for Speed, Forza Horizon and The Crew are really the only big players out there. I skipped The Crew 2 and Motorfest because it's The Crew. I've tried the Need for Speed Most Wanted remake from 2012, which was a badly timed April Fool's joke, the reboot from 2016 and Heat and Unbound and I don't know, no. Especially the 2016 one, Heat and Unbound, are just so weird, man. I refunded all 3 of them after maybe half an hour because the handling is atrocious. Not every start has to be a burnout, you know? It's cringe beyond redemption, we'll get back to that later, and I can't even put my finger on it because I just want to forget. At least the Hot Pursuit remake seemed okay, because it was mostly just the same game, but newer, I guess? So, if you're thinking, hey Zeba, what you want is there already in Need for Speed Part whatever, I say, hey, that's cool and all, but apparently the rest of the game hasn't convinced me enough to stick to it. A friend of mine wanted me to get into Forza as Horizon 3 released for PC, but I, knowing not too much about Forza and what I knew being that it wasn't too much like Need for Speed and that the handling was difficult and whatever, I declined. Quite close to the end of Horizon 3's active life, maybe close to the beginning of 2018, I folded and bought it and, oh well, I loved it. I still do. There's a reason why I filmed this whole video on the beauty of Forza Horizon. Go and watch it. 4, 3 and 5, in that order from favorite to least favorite, are great fun games about driving around on a big map in fast cars. But they are not much more than that. The handling is a perfect mix of realism and arcade. There are literally hundreds of cars to choose from, dozens of tuning parts, but it's missing something. It's missing what the old Need for Speeds had. So, why not mix them? I feel like there's not only a possibility, but a need for a new tuner-based street racer that is highly reminiscent of these older titles. So let's find out how this mystical game would look. Having a good story for a racer is a difficult thing, I think. There are only a handful of problems you can solve by racing around in your cars. In The Crew, you rise through the ranks of a motorist club to help avenge your brother and right the wrongs that happened to you, and in Most Wanted, you rise through the ranks of a collection of racers to get your car back and right the wrongs that happened to you, and in Underground, you rise through the ranks of the Underground Racing Society of Bayview to get revenge for, yeah. And as repetitive as that may seem, it's a much better hook for the story than, hey, here's a Lamborghini and $1 million, make our festival bigger, I guess, and race because we like to race because we are racers. I don't want too much story. These games don't need much story. There doesn't need to be a tragic backstory, and there definitely don't need to be real-world icons and stars in these games. As much as I adore Underground 2, I think Most Wanted did it right. Quick intro, being personally involved through my car getting essentially stolen, and some side stories here and there about fights with the police or whatever. The structure of the story is created through the gameplay, not by it being told to me directly. The blacklist is a great plot device. Every entry, every racer is a hurdle to overcome and tells a short story with big, important story chunks sprinkled in between. And that's it. That's enough. Back then it was a necessity born out of technological restrictions. There was no space, no computing power for hours of cutscenes, so there just weren't as many and they needed to make do with what they had. And the resulting simplicity is something I would like to have back. The success of remakes like THPS 1 and 2, Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, and the continued success of Rayman and literally every Mario side-scroller is a perfect proof that gamers like good, excessive stories, but they don't need them. What they do need is a great soundtrack. Now, I'm a bit prejudiced because I was musically raised on these soundtracks. I can 100% retrace the origins of my musical taste to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, 3, 4, Underground and American Wasteland, Need for Speed Underground 2 and Most Wanted, and GTA Vice City and San Andreas. And especially, thanks to my dad, everything rock and metal related is just mwah, peak racing game material. But even if you're 100% not into that, you have to admit that especially Need for Speed has gone to shit when it comes to musical variety. Let's take the Need for Speed Heat soundtrack. I, and that's a personal problem, don't know any of the artists in the soundtrack. None. And even when you leave that aside, look at the genres. It's 99% rap and hip-hop and a bit of electronic and Latin stuff. And if you're into that, that's cool for you, but I think a more balanced selection of music is only fair because we want everyone to be happy, right? I'm gonna combine Need for Speed Underground 2 and Most Wanted here, but both have punk, metal, rock, rap and hip-hop, quite a few different subgenres of electronic music, and in the case of Most Wanted, even orchestral pieces for the police chases. That's a palette, that's something to choose from. And I know this is taste and I'm blinded by nostalgia and my personal preference when it comes to music, but Need for Speed introduced me to my favorite band, Avenged Sevenfold. It also introduced me to Rise Against, The Prodigy, Bullet for My Valentine, Disturbed, Paul van Dyk, The Doors, Queens of the Stone Age, Celldweller, Mastodon, and reintroduced me to Styles of Beyond. And I'm sorry, but a lazily compiled radio of mediocre whatever just doesn't cut it. Oh, and also, if you're shooting down a highway in a specced out beast of a car, isn't this what you want to hear? Forza actually does this quite well. I have to admit, of course, I prefer Horizon 3's Epitaph the Radio over everything, maybe except for Horizon 4's theme song, but my main gripe with new Need for Speed games doesn't really matter here. There are radio stations for rock, pop, rap, drum and bass, classical stuff. I can't complain, really. Just give me a bit more metal, please. Tightly interwoven with the music are the game's distinctive styles. Now, while Forza Horizon definitely has its own style, it's clean and sleek, colorful and bright, it's what everything is now. It is corporate, trying to be as round and without edges as possible, probably also to not disrupt its delicate relationship to all the different car manufacturers. But the older Need for Speeds, damn, they had their distinctive styles. When it comes to colors, Underground 2 revolved around strong neon colors paired with darker backgrounds in black and dark green and dark blue, mostly because it was set at night. Well, Most Wanted had yellow, but it really conveyed this atmosphere of dirty, hot street, the smell of burning rubber, and a bit too much sweat in the air. It was daytime, it was dirty, and it was in your face. And most of all, it was a bold choice. Underground 2, not as much, but I'd love to see that again. And, against my better judgment, I actually have to commend Unbound. It was very cringe and I did not like the weird comic stuff one bit, but I applaud them for trying something new. We need that, really. Now would be the perfect chance to give you an example for this, but, well, I have no idea. I wouldn't mind if they just borrowed one of the older settings, be it Underground or Most Wanted, or Carbon even. Just dare to try something and then do it well, because they've been lacking in the latter department for quite a bit. One thing I rediscovered while playing Most Wanted for this essay was how well the intro videos to gameplay mechanics and blacklist entries are crafted. They are simple, it's mostly gameplay, but they have custom-made mixes of, well, I assume the character's favorite song, and they use this 3D, 2D pop-up book style that is super simple but so cool. Again, I think it was a necessity because of the restrictions of their time, but I want stuff like this back. I mentioned the cringe factor of a lot of the cutscenes and the stories in Need for Speed titles, and it definitely happens in Forza as well. You sometimes drive people around and their commentary is just so weird and put on. Oh wow, you're going really fast around that corner. Oh no, I spilled my drink. Oh damn it. And I guess there's a point to be made that Razor and Rachel Teller and whoever are not really the epitome of impressive character design, but they're not pretentious and they, in a way, don't try to be who they're not. They fit their respective worlds very well, and there's no inherent problem with weird characters as long as the world they live in is just as weird. But in Forza and Need for Speed and the crew, we're trying to get closer to reality, mostly, which makes it difficult to write characters that convey what needs to be conveyed in that situation without sounding fucking stupid. Like, you can't say, hey, we're this big festival and we're super international, and look, oh, there's Ken Block or whoever, and you're gonna jump over a 5-story building with a McLaren P1, and that's perfectly realistic. I know, these games never claim to be realistic per se. There are other games for that, but you can imply realism without wanting to, and the way the modifications work, the amount of settings you can adjust and so on, it just gets closer to reality with every installment. And these characters and reality don't really mix. So what I'm proposing is, go back. Be stupid and bold and over the top, but stay true to the setting. Don't shove Monster Energy cans into every shot. Get some decent music in there, a carefully curated set of cars, and well, that's about it. Something that this hypothetical game could borrow fully from Forza is the handling. I've never been one for realistic handling games, simulations even, but I gotta admit, the handling of the older games is, well, Mario Kart 8 has gotten close. But Forza Horizon actually strikes a really good balance. Like, especially when you do manual shifting, take away all the little helpers, it's a game that demands from you to learn it a bit and stay focused. But of course, it's also chock full of ways to make it more arcadey for those of us who can't or don't want to think about all the technicalities too much. Underground 2 and Most Wanted both had their special doodad, namely Racebreaker Nitrous and Speedbreaker. Racebreaker Nitrous just means that you get to refill your nitrous tanks by doing cool stuff. It's similar to the skills in Forza, and I guess that combining the two mechanics would actually make for a really cool new one. Speedbreaker, on the other hand, works to the contrary. It slows down time in the game and allows you to go around corners or hit cops or similar stuff in a much more controlled way. As much as I like it in Most Wanted, its meaningful implementation in this new racer is really dependent on the way the handling is designed. I also don't think that this future racing game needs any kind of damage models or whatever. Scratches and broken windows? Sure, but it would be just another expense to handle and probably annoy me too much. What I'd love to see again though is a good police system. I know that newer Need for Speeds have police, and I guess it works okay? I've never been able to deal with these games long enough to actually form a strong opinion on this, but replaying Most Wanted I remembered how great the chases were. The cool, slightly arrogant calls of the police over the radio slowly changing to frantic calls of, oh, he's going north, now he's going west, he's absolutely crazy. Just pumps you up so much. My girlfriend mentioned to me that the first zoom onto the cop car still gives her a rush and tells her it's on. Make the police a force to be reckoned with, make it challenging. A thing I'm really torn over is what kind of races this hypothetical game should offer. I love drift races in Underground 2, but I get why they're not in Most Wanted. The handling is just too different. I enjoy the checkpoint races in Most Wanted, and I get why they're not in Underground 2. It just doesn't fit the idea, the style of the game. If I had to choose, I'd say we need circuits, even though I hate them. Sprints, drags, drifts, checkpoint races, and free roam stuff like Outrun. Give me a map with colorful circuits, and I'll plow through them like it's nothing. Especially to people a bit younger than me, I must sound like some boomer complaining about the good old days, and maybe you don't understand what my problem is with these newer titles, and you're probably right. There's a buttload of nostalgia seeping through this script, but there's this tangible aura of something indescribable surrounding these games, surrounding many games from that era. And I kinda want that back. Media like video games are flexible enough to accommodate many, many ideas, and especially those from ages ago, because the technology is just getting better. THPS 1 and 2 definitely proved that. Perfect remake, go watch my video on it. But for now, thanks for watching. See you next time.